Okay, we're going to make a start. Apologies for the slight delay, and you'll hear an ambulance in a minute, but I think the lady is in good hands. Yes, I knew that's what we were going to get. I could try and eat it.
That's better.
Too low. Is that any better? So I got to try and eat it then. Right, okay. This is going to be fun. Right, so I think most of you know why we're here. Bus meeting. This is the fourth meeting we've had. We had a large hall. The first meeting, we thought we were in trouble tonight, might have to move, but we haven't got everybody in. This is the fourth one, as I say, we've had. I'm just going to say a few words. I've got a couple of statements from people who haven't been able to come. And then we've got Tanya's going to give an overview of feelings, and then it'll be open up. We'll get a gentleman to interview. Yeah, they're all gentlemen tonight, to introduce themselves so that you know who they are and who they represent. So, following the recent media coverage of proposed bus service cuts, this meeting needs to agree the next steps forward. If, as I believe those speaking this evening cannot honestly reassure us and the residents that a bus service from Weston, Clevedon, Portishead, through Avonmouth Station, Cribbs Causeway and Southmead Hospital, we may need to consider civil protest action. I really do believe we've got to the stage where they're not listening. So this is something I think we should all consider. There's a lot of people here who are obviously going to wish to speak this evening, and I would ask that the questions and comments remain civil. I'll even put that on myself to try and remain civil, and limit to one a person. There's a lot of people here. I'm sure a lot of people will want to speak, but if you can give everybody the chance. I'll ask the panel to introduce themselves and presumably and hopefully not give the same excuses as they've given in the other three meetings. The removal of services is now a question of depriving residents of core transport routes to friends, shops, health facilities, council meetings and events. And I don't believe that's acceptable in a 21st century Britain. We had old people in here this morning on a tea and tech thing. Two of those ladies can't come next time or when the buses stop because they can't come. I mean, it's just not acceptable, I don't think, in this day and age. Another one that I'm going to read out because there's been some confusion about a Nelsey District community transport. For those of you who don't know, Patricia Sterndale, who is our chairman, would have read this out. She is a trustee. Unfortunately, she's volunteered for another series of checks for the injections we're going to have in the autumn, and she's gone down with it, so she isn't very happy. So I'm going to read it out on her behalf. So if you can assume that I'm her. I'm speaking on behalf of the Nelsey District Community Transport, NDCT, of which I am a trustee. She is. As you probably know, the number 56 bus service, which runs from Clevedon to Portishead via Walton Bay, is being cancelled at the end of August. We understand that some people have been told that this route is being taken over by NDCT. In fact, notices to that effect were placed in the buses for passengers to see. I can state categorically that this will not happen. NDCT have not received any request to do so, and even if they do, they would not provide such a service. They do not have a license to provide scheduled services. NDCT have the buses, the drivers and infrastructures, they're all volunteers. Most of the drivers and the trustees, as I say, are volunteers. We give our time willingly to help the elderly, disabled and isolated, but we are not a bus company and never will be. You can find information about becoming a member of NDCT. You should have all had leaflets on the desks, on your seats rather. And so if you need to use them, you can, but it's pre-booked and you need to be a member of the organization. It's not a bus service. Anybody who's been telling you that it's a bus service, they're wrong. Okay, so if the gentlemen that are on the panel would like to introduce themselves, and then I'll open it up through Tanya to start with.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name's Chris Hanson. I'm the Operations Director for First Bus in the West of England. And my colleague doesn't have a microphone, so I'll have to introduce him, but this is Ashley Robbins. He is the Staff Manager for Weston-super-Mare Depot, who provide the X4 and the X5.
Good evening, everyone. Is that coming through? I'm trying to get the microphone to work. Is that better? Let's get really close to it. Councillor Steve Bridger, I'm ward councillor for Yatton and leader of North Somerset Council. Councillor Steve Bridger, Yatton ward councillor and leader of North Somerset Council.
Good evening, it's Carl Nicholson, North Somerset Council. I'm the Public Transport Manager.
Thank you for
I drove because I have to go to Wales afterwards, and unfortunately there is no bus connection or train connection yet for me to be able to do so.
I have no idea. And just to be aware that if you've got more than 2 or 3 on them, they do cut out. So if you finish speaking, if you turn it off. Can people hear me okay? I mean, what I can do, if it's easier, is stand up and speak. That's easier. The problem with that is the people online won't hear. So I'll shout. Is that all right? Right, sorry, I've got to read this because there's quite a lot here. My name's Tanya Slatter and I'm one of the Portishead Town Councillors for the West Ward, the ward at the top of the hill. As well as councillor for the area, I should just mention now for transparency that I also live there with my family, including my 18-year-old, who is due to start at Western Uni campus in September. So we are personally affected by these proposed changes. 6 years ago, the then North Somerset Council leader, Nigel Ashton, decided, claiming that we weren't allowed a referendum, sorry, I'm trying to put this somewhere so I don't have to wave it around, to allow the residents to have a say that North Somerset shouldn't be part of WECA, the West of England Combined Authority, along with the Bristol, South Gloss and Baines, because, and I quote, it's of no benefit to North Somerset. 3 years later, after the 2019 election, where he lost his leadership, he reiterated this statement, saying that not joining was absolutely the right decision. Fast forward a few years, when the X5 to Cribbs Causeway was axed by First Bus in 2020, we had a councillor from Weston-super-Mare, so not a local councillor, Councillor John Crockford Hawley, who interestingly has suddenly woken up in the paper today, I noticed, because Weston is now affected, making it clear that North Somerset Council should refuse to support the campaign to reinstate the X5 to Cribbs Causeway, telling councillors and residents that, and I quote again, it is not our job to subsidise buses out of the county for the benefit of competing shopping values. He and the leader at the time, Don Davis, failed to understand, despite lobbying from residents and councillors, that this service was used for many other things than just shopping. Cribbs Causeway is a huge employment and leisure area. There's a special eye hospital treatment centre there, which patients are usually actually unable to drive to for obvious reasons. And there's also the option of onward buses to important services such as Southmead Hospital and Bristol Parkway Station, which is quite handy when we don't have our own railway link. Don Davis, who's a very vocal advocate for fewer cars on the road and more use of sustainable transport, preferred that any extra money should be used for services within the district. He reiterated this as recently as May this year after a resident, who's here tonight, Heather, set up a petition for the reinstatement of the service, saying that his team has to prioritise other routes given its meagre budget, and it does not make sense as it would take customers away from North Somerset and into Bristol. Earlier this year, we had the same private bus company who have a complete monopoly on transport in the region and the ones that acts the Cribs Causeway bus, announcing they'd no longer offer a direct service for half the residents of Portishead for Clevedon who live in the upper parts of the towns in the other direction to Weston, affecting a huge number of commuters, students, and those customers that councillors Crockford, Hawley and Davis were so keen to keep within the district, as well as many leisure users. Now we're being told that the bus that the half of Portishead and Clevedon can no longer easily use is being completely scrapped due to lack of demand, making it not financially viable. We're told this by the company that paid £500 million to its shareholders last year, made around 30 million profit, up from 20 the year before, and are predicted will make significantly higher profits next year. Portishead has long been accused of being a dormitory town or a suburb of Bristol, but now, despite falling within the North Somerset local authority, it seems that this has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Bristol is the only place anyone without a car can travel to easily, and even that will be more difficult now with one of the buses being removed. We as councillors regularly receive planning applications for developments with few parking spaces and are told they can be approved because there's going to be a train or there's a bus stop within so many metres. But what use is a bus stop without the buses? Some applications still mention the bus that used to take commuters to the MOD, and that's not been a thing for years. As well as shoppers, commuters and students from Portishead and Clevedon no longer being able to do what we're constantly being told we should all be doing, travelling where we need to by public transport rather than car, we here in Portishead, and I hope they don't mind me mentioning this, because I know they're both here, now find ourselves in a ludicrous position where at least 2 of our 5 elected Portishead district councillors won't actually be able to get to the town hall for meetings that we all know we have to attend in person to represent the town that elected them. So to go back to that comment from Don Davis that he'd prefer for money to be spent for users within the district, as it's now looking like we're not going to have any bus services for travel within the district, will North Somerset Council now be putting their money, figuratively speaking of course, I know we can't actually spend the money from the government for bus services on buses, where their mouths are, and stepping up to campaign for and support travel within North Somerset? Will they also refuse any new developments until we have at least a half-decent public transport option? In the 2021 West of England Bus Improvement Plan, that is supposed to be a joint plan between WECA, that we're not part of, and North Somerset Council, Doug Claringbold, MD of First Bus, committed to supporting the proposals in the plan for, amongst other things, improving the speed and predictability of bus journey times across the region as a key element of driving patronage growth. Focusing infrastructure and service frequency along core corridors to develop truly turn up and go services. Improving information and facilities for bus users to retain and attract new users. And targeted fare reduction and the move to multi-operator capping to kickstart the market. There are many other similar statements in the bus improvement plan, which, as I say, goes from last year, so it's not old. It's 130 pages long, so I won't quote it all, but if you think your blood pressure can cope with it, I recommend having a look. But one key commitment that jumped out at me is this. Now, bear in mind, again, this is from WECA, North Somerset Council, First Bus and Stagecoach, I believe, are involved as well. Our delivery plans work together in aiming to make the bus convenient, taking our residents where they want to go at the times they need to travel by extending the current network, enhancing frequencies and optimising services. So I would ask the gentleman here tonight, and I know none of this is your decisions, however, you are the representatives for the organisations. How exactly does any of what we're hearing about as being proposed tie in with that statement? Thank you.
Do you want to make a general statement back, Chris, before we get some more questions? Can you hear any better? Is it any better?
If I sit like that, how's that? Can you hear me okay? I know I've always been loud ever since I was young. It helps in this job. There's few perks. Well, I'll start by talking a little bit about the process, because actually we are in a consultation process. So as you have mentioned several times, these are proposals. Those proposals have now changed, and I'll let North Somerset Council deliver that news this evening. But there's some good news, but there's still some bad news. And the challenge, and we absolutely recognise the statements that were read out by Doug in the bus service improvement plan, which was designed to get money as part of the WECA and North Somerset bid, which was successful. However, and it's for the council to make more comments on this, that money isn't here yet. Ultimately, that money won't be delivered ahead of the new financial year in April. And the bigger challenge facing us right this second is that our funding that we've been very fortunate to have been in receipt of since October, since the start of COVID, will expire in October. And we've got to address two key situations. We are a private limited company, a public limited company, sorry, wrong way around. And as such, we are a business. And because we are the bulk operator, not by our choice, but by the fact that there are no others in the area, or very few, should I say, we have a challenging situation on, we have to make sure that each of our routes financially sustains itself. And we have a large number that pre-COVID did not. So ignoring the effects of the pandemic right now, pre-COVID, the X5 for many years had lost money. So we actually removed the service in 2018, well, I think maybe tail end of 2018, 2019. And that service was replaced by Stagecoach. So we effectively sold them the service, albeit that there was no money exchange because you don't pay money for a loss-making service. So they wanted to give it a go, and they did. They ran it to Cribbs Causeway on the same or similar timetable to that we did. They removed that service in 2020. As part of the government ongoing funding, we reinstated that service on a temporary basis while the funding continued. That pledge expires in October. There is news on the X5, which I'll let North Somerset deliver in a moment. But to cover the rest of our network, the second challenge, which is rapidly becoming our bigger challenge, is the significant labour shortage that we are facing. We are currently 160 plus drivers short in the west of England. And when I say west of England, it's a slightly different area than what we might call WECA or any of those. We've got one depot in Weston-super-Mare, 3 depots in Bristol, 1 depot in Bath and 1 depot in Wells. And in those, and Wells is in Somerset, not as in with Cardiff in it. So that means that with 160 driver shortage, we aren't able to run everything that we're currently being mandated to run as part of the requirements for the funding regime that we're under, which suggests that we must have X percentage of scheduled mileage of pre-COVID. I believe that number currently is 80%, which we are actually sat behind. And we know that our applicant number is the big concerning factor. So we had a mass ascent of leavers, primarily driven by the fact that the government did decide to write to all of our drivers and suggest that they become lorry drivers, which was not particularly helpful. And we lost something around the region of 20% of our workforce overnight. So we've been building it up through COVID, and that was wiped out. But our applicant numbers are about 1/5 of what they were pre-COVID. There's lots of different reasons for that. And I'm not going to go into the politics of Brexit, but it is a fact that Brexit has affected our applicant numbers. That is not meant as a political statement on whether we should have or should have not left the EU. That is just a statement of fact. We've also, naturally speaking, attracting much less numbers of applicants in places like Weston-super-Mare, where pre-COVID we didn't have a problem. And we are currently looking at all opportunities and avenues to address this. We've put our pay up for our drivers significantly. We've given them a 14% pay rise, which is still in excess of inflation, even though inflation is still high. And we have looked at our conditions and tried to make our conditions more flexible so that we're more appealing as a modern employer. That is a long process that involves lots of work with our trade union, and that's lots of what I spend my life doing at the moment. But even so, even with a reduced turnover staff rate, we are still losing more staff through natural wastage of people retiring or whatever happens. In the last 12 weeks, we have lost more people than we have gained. We have tried to get more agency staff, which are never a perfect solution because they're never anywhere near as good as my existing staff would be. And even the agency now can't recruit. And I've seen figures today to suggest that all operators in the southwestern Wales are operating with now a circa of 10% shortage of bus drivers. So to give you an idea, Cardiff bus are circa 150 drivers short in a place where it is significantly cheaper to live than in the west of England. So That's to, I don't wish to sound too doom and gloom, but there are some services that we're looking at in other parts of the area, not in North Somerset, where we had to have this sentence of even if that service were to attract funding, which the Transport Act would suggest in its current form that would happen. So the bus has no commercial service, therefore the Transport Authority are empowered, not necessarily funded, but empowered to provide that service, and we as an operator will receive funding and that switches type of service. There are at least 4 services in the West of England, none of them are in North Somerset, where even if that funding were to be offered, we have still had to reject it because we don't have the staff to be able to actually fulfill that service. And there are some key services on key corridors in places like Bristol, which are actually only able to operate at 60% of what they were pre-COVID, because I don't have the driver and resource to be able to continue. So actually, although we're 160 drivers short of today's requirement, that is almost 250 drivers shorter than I would have had pre-COVID. And that situation is not looking to improve in any time soon. And we're looking at lots of different ways we can achieve that, whether we train people to actually get a car license, because we know the age of getting your car license is increasing to around 28 now rather than 18. So there's lots of things, but they're not going to fix the problem tomorrow. And I've had to throw a whole lot of money at more agency drivers where I've had to pay up for them. But again, even they can't recruit. So there's 2 big problems. There's our ability financially to sustain what we're doing post the funding dropping off. There's the issues of even if we wanted to operate a service at a loss, there's the competition's rules that would not allow us to do so. And then there's the issue of even if some of these services attract funding, we don't have the drivers to actually fulfill them because we cannot continue to operate the frankly poor service that we operate today because we are being mandated to run a level of service that we can't sustain with the level of staff that we have. So as always with these meetings, and I make no apology again for apologizing, that I want to apologize to anybody who has stood and waited for a bus that has simply failed to turn up. We are doing everything we can to resolve this situation. I was in till 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday driving X4s. So I do, and Ashley, my colleague here, does the same, and lots of my managers and supervisors do. But this is the worst staffing situation that I have ever known us to have, and it's industry-wide. And we are working closely with the government, with the local authority, but there is no easy fix for this. And without staff and without drivers, I may want to put the bus on, we may even have the buses, but we won't have the staff. I can't do anything. So that's the kind of, I'm afraid, rather grim context, but X5 wise, we'll just hold off and I'll let my colleagues at North Somerset, if that's permissible, Bob, to give a statement on that.
Okay, just one point. If there's people at the back who can't actually hear, there are some seats at the front if you wish to come forward, whether that would help. Just making sure that you're aware of that.
Don't be shy.
No volunteers to come forward. Okay, Carl, do you want to
Yeah.
say something?
So despite the doom and gloom, I think the thing first. Yeah, sorry, by all means. The mics are pretty useless. So. Yeah. So despite the doom and gloom, yes, I'm sorry, I can't help the technologies. I'll eat it if I go any closer. I'll try not to eat the microphone. So despite the doom and gloom, a lot of our services have stabilised in North Somerset, and First should take some credit for putting the effort in to do that. We've had a lot of negotiations with First the last few weeks to try and do something about the X5, because we know without that service, people will have to probably make a 2-hour journey instead of a 40-minute journey. And that isn't a realistic proposition, particularly for the young who need to go to college and for those that don't have the fortune of driving. So we have managed to secure an alternative X5 service. And in brief, that service will start at Portishead and it will terminate in Wirral, at the interchange in Wirral, where there are multiple options to make interchanges to other services. No, Cribs is not on the agenda, and I'll tell you why for now. It can't go. So the reason the bus will not do any more than that. It's about the amount of resource it will take. So we managed to secure one bus and a couple of drivers rather than the previous service that was, I believe, 4 buses and circa 8 to 10 drivers involved. This bus will keep the core unique sections of route. It will interchange with the X4 and you will then go to Bristol on the X4, which is now the direct service. Sorry, I can't shout much louder, the technology's not working. So that will be the service that we will announce tonight. And that's what we will fund till April until we can do a further review of resources. So in essence, it will go from Portishead High Street, where it will interchange with the X4, so you can carry on to Bristol if you wish. And it will run through Clevedon and then to Wirral at the bus interchange by Sainsbury's. From there, there is a service every few minutes to the centre of town.
It's also worth noting that from that interchange, I think I've got the better microphone and a louder voice, so I'm fortunate. But from that interchange in Weston, we will provide options to make that seamless option. So, for example, the bus will become a Service 7, which provides a direct link to Weston General Hospital and Weston College. So actually, by staying on that bus and continuing onwards on certain journeys, and we'll highlight what they are and we'll send them out. It's very early days. So we actually only confirmed that probably 2 hours before this meeting, that we will continue to operate that. So in a ticketing sense and in an ease of operation sense, this is for the time being until we can put a proper review in April and hopefully extend it further. This still provides that key link on the X5 and allows you to get everywhere in Weston that people want to go, with direct links to Weston College and direct links to the hospital, which at the moment you don't have on the
Can I
X5.
just clarify the timing of this? I mean, the X5 is still running at the moment.
Yeah, so the X5 is scheduled to run and will run until the 8th of October. The revised X5 will kick in the next day on the 9th of October. So to Bristol, you will get off the X5 if you wish and get on the X4. No, depends where you start from.
So we're going to try and because we've started this today, obviously it's a bit new at the moment. The X4 is already registered and has a timetable. So we're going to move the X5 around to interchange with the X4 sensibly, rather than we can't change the X4 now, that one's done, but the X5 we can still move around.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but if you're going to speak, if you could come and use a mic, it would help, because the people online can only hear what you speak into the mics.
Could I just finish going through the other subject that I know will come up tonight, which is Cribbs Causeway? So given the dire situation with drivers across every supplier in the Southwest, there is no possibility of us instating a Cribbs service in October. There is a very slim chance of it happening in the spring. We will do our best to do that. We will draw up plans to do that. But in reality, it could be a year before that becomes a reality. So I don't want to raise expectations at this point. These are circumstances well beyond the council's control. They are a national problem. But I will state that we are still intending to put a service to Cribbs and beyond. That is not a forgotten project.
Hello, can you hear me now? Right. Okay. The X5, can you say where it will go, which stop will it leave from when it goes to Weston, please? And it'll go to Wirral. So in Portishead, exactly which stop will it leave from, please?
I think the honest answer is we haven't got to that point in working the timetable out yet. I will share with Portishead Town Council once we have got to that point. Off the top of my head, I will imagine it will stop where it does now. A sensible turnaround point seems to be Sainsbury's to me, but I haven't looked at it in any great detail yet, other than to know that we will definitely stop where it stops in the high street as it does now.
Thank you very much.
One thing that's worth mentioning is the fact that it's you coming to these meetings has made that happen. They wouldn't have done that out of the goodness of their heart.
I would like to respond to that point in that that's partly true, but we do always and have always recognised the importance of the X5. So we have fought tooth and nail to save that service over the last 4 years, knowing that the alternative isn't an alternative to people. You would have to travel for 4 hours a day to replicate the same journey that takes an hour and a half a day. That is not a reasonable solution for our students and our vulnerable citizens. I will say that we are one of the key drivers behind this is access to education for our young, i.e. those that go to Weston College. That's always been a concern of the council. And we will do everything we can to tee that up so that students have efficient, sensible, affordable access to education. So what I can say is that arrangement is in place till April as an emergency measure, and we don't have any money in the council to pay for it. We've actually managed to convince the DFT to award our first part of BSIP funding to enable this. So, you know, Portishead has received the first bit of the BSIP money that we haven't even actually secured fully yet. Yes. So for the benefit of the audience, I was asked when will the money arrive for BSIP? The BSIP we are finalising our negotiations on a few further points, and there are some good things to come out of that for residents, such as cheaper fares. We hope to confirm that with the DFT over the next couple of weeks. They will then give us a confirmed allocation of which we can start to spend against that money. So we've actually secured something before that timescale, and the money should land proper with us in the autumn, but we'll be allowed to start spending, assuming we can even find resources to spend it on, from around October.
Hello, everybody. I'll try not necessarily to use the microphone. Okay, but yeah, they hear me. They hear me. Okay. Basically, we've been talking about so far the X5. Okay, and we fully support what everybody is saying about the X5. We, our little group, okay, we basically are interested in the number 56 bus, which I think a lot of people in Portishead know as the ghost bus, because there are no timetables on the route. It's never been advertised by North Somerset Council. It travels currently for free for all users of all age groups between Portishead and Clevedon and back again 3 times a day, mainly after key hours, like school run and so on and so forth. So what I want to know, it has been funded by North Somerset Council. So first, guys, you're let off the hook right now, okay, for a minute or so, take a breather. But basically, we want to know why only a week ago, our drivers put a notice in, they're from Western District Community Transport, and they put a notice in the bus for those users to say that the bus will be discontinued at the end of August. So that means that people, again, from centre of Portishead to the centre of Clevedon and back again, will not have a connecting bus, especially when the X5 goes. So we need to join together on this. What we are really concerned about, is our bus goes through Walton Bay. So it's the only bus every day that goes through Walton Bay. Walton Bay is described on the as a caravan park on the bus timetable, on the bus stops. Okay, everywhere it's Walton Bay Caravan Park. That's because historically it was a big caravan park. Okay, there was lots of them. There were about 4 different estates. Now, 4 out of the 5 caravan parks are residential home parks. They have 250 homes. Sorry, about 150 homes with 250 to 300 people, mainly 50 or over, that live in those houses. Plus, of course, on the end of that, there are the normal villagers and there are the normal people that live in the houses along that route. Okay, now we are being told that that is going to stop at the end of the month. My questions are, 1, why? It has been funded by North Somerset Council since the demise of the 88 bus. Okay, on and off, periodically. COVID didn't particularly help, etc., etc. Okay, I think they will argue that they can no longer afford to run it. But if that was the case, why didn't they stop it at the end of the COVID period or before? Because what they've been doing is they've been funding Western Community Transport to the tune, we estimate, if it's £500 a week, of approximately 39 to 40,000 or maybe more to supply that service, which there's no adverts, there's no timetables. We've spoken to this about some people on the way through. They haven't seen a timetable, apart from one lady who said to me, I saw a timetable, it's on the bus back there. And I said, on the bus stop back there. And I said, yes, I put that up yesterday. But there's no official timetables, so nobody knows it's going. I know that at this meeting on previous occasions, the council were asked why this bus service was not being advertised. In those days, there was a charge of £2 per adult and £1 per child. Okay, but then what happened was, right, they were asked why, and they were asked to advertise the service. It never happened, even to this day. So then, what I'm asking now is to the councillors, why? Why did you not actually do what the town council asked you to do? I then want to know about why there has been no notification to passengers at all, apart from with 3 weeks to go. Our little group is called All Aboard the 56, which you may see out and about. You see it in the posset pages and things like that. I'll tell you now, I am actually really a resident of Clevedon, because Walton Bay is in Clevedon. Okay, so I maybe have jumped this meeting a little bit. I apologise about that. But I'm also asking North Somerset Council now whether or not they have notified Clevedon Council. Have they had similar discussions with Clevedon Council? Not many people in this room tonight knew about the bus 56. Not many people knew it was an alternative to the X5. Not many people knew that it was currently run free. Not many people knew that North Somerset Council were funding it. And not many people would recognise the bus running along the road. In fact, our bus drivers tell us they very often stop. It stops along the way, which they are allowed to do. But because people suspect it as a community bus, and therefore they're not sure whether they've got to pay or not, they're not sure where it goes because there's no timetables, they don't get on. But it's free. So, sorry? Now it's free. Okay. So what North Somerset have done is, and previous meetings, according to the records that I've been given by some of my able-bodied members of our group, what they've done is they have acknowledged in the past that they have mucked up on this service. They have deliberately not advertised the service. And now they have been funding it at least to the tune of £40,000, which could be used for other services, including bus services, throughout North Somerset Council. Now, none of that has happened. Okay, so we've got to ask North Somerset Council, why have they been deliberately misleading the public? Why have they been deliberately spending North Somerset Council money, knowing that they were sabotaging the service by not advertising it and not making sure that people knew that they could use it? I would say that that is misappropriation of funds. And I would say that North Somerset themselves need to answer those questions. And I would say that I feel that everybody in this room would have a right as ratepayers for North Somerset Council to complain to the council and ask that these particular people that have made the decisions, A, to take it off, even to continue running it in the first place. I think they should ask whether or not those people working within the council that made those decisions are fit to continue in the role, knowing that misappropriation of funds have taken place. So I'm sorry, guys, I'm on the big yellow bus, all right, which happens to be the little number 56. In the next week, we plan a campaign of action to support the number 56. Please, please, please ask us for a timetable if you want. Please use that bus. There are only 16 seats on it. It's Western District Community Transport, okay? It goes from Sainsbury's, okay, down Harbour Road, past the leisure centre, all along the High Street. It runs up to Valley Road. It goes Valley Road up to the top of Knoll Road, okay, and along Down Road through Wharton Bay and Wharton in Gordano. It then turns into Clevedon. It can stop all the way until the triangle. It turns at the triangle and comes back. What I'm saying to North Somerset Council is, if they can afford to throw away money without advertising it and deliberately not advertising it, then I say that they should continue to run this service, even though they are going to claim that they have no money to do it. I'm going to say you had no money to do it in the first place, apparently, and you stopped people from paying for it, which they were happy to do in the first place, and you continued to run it for approximately 18 months in total, which is how I'm getting my figure, which is approximately £40,000. Okay, 39, £40,000 if that service cost about £500 a week.
Okay, I think you've made your point. If we can have a response now, please.
I've got some available afterwards. I haven't got enough for everybody, but anybody who wants to take a photograph, they're welcome. Okay. Or
Can I make a response before anyone else does, please? So I need to put on record why the service is being terminated, and I did explain that in some detail at the previous meeting, but I can go over that again if required. So the 88 contract that used to run via Walton Bay expired mid-pandemic. So that left us with a problem. So we couldn't find a contractor with a bus small enough to go through Walton Bay, sorry, big enough, I apologise, to go through Walton Bay with the resources in the pandemic to do that. We only had enough time to serve a different contract with a higher amount of, sort of chimneys on routes, effectively, which became the 57 and the 59 and the 58. Because there is no turning facility around what we inappropriately apparently call the caravan park, we couldn't run a big bus up there. So we tried during the pandemic using government pandemic money, not council money, to put in a temporary service to serve those people that were isolated from the network. Sorry, can I finish my statement, please? Thank you. So we've used government money to this point to put in effectively what is not a bus service, it's a free shuttle service to fill a gap in the market. That money expires on the 4th of October, and we have not got the driver resource beyond the end of August to do it. So the service will finish. And we won't be using council money to replace it because we don't have any at the moment. What we do intend to do is to find a form of demand responsive service, which would be a similar type minibus to serve that unique section of the district. For now, the solution, we do pay Dial-A-Ride to serve the area of Portishead and Clevedon. We've asked people to revert to using that service in the interim of finding a form of bus service that can go through there. We can't charge the current service because the licenses are not in place to take money. We used to because we ran it under a different license and a different method for a while. But since Western and District have taken it on, they don't have ticket machines, they don't have bus compliant vehicles for public transport. So we don't have any realistic options to run that service.
I did use the service when it was with Western Community, and he did take my money. So that's a lie. No, but he took money. But to me, it was a proper bus service because they took my money. Was there insurance on the bus?
The service was previously run under a Section 19 permit and a Section 22 permit. The rules around those permits have changed during COVID due to legal challenges from bus operators. It was an ongoing dispute for quite some time. Once that dispute was settled, it became apparent we could no longer run the bus that way.
I was unaware that when it changed, when it was free, I was just told that it was a community bus service.
It's just a free shuttle service we put on as an interim while we had some government grant to do that. The idea had always been to find a replacement bus service before this time came. We haven't been able to. No, we haven't been able to find a solution for that. Because it's not a legally registered compliant service anymore. So we
But
have to
that
stop
doesn't
it.
make sense that it's not a legally,
It's not a bus
it-
service, just a free
but
shuttle
it
service.
was a bus service.
Under a different
was a-
permit, under a different permit regime, under a different set
It
of
was
rules.
taking money from the public.
Yes, and that was permissible back then. It
and-
isn't anymore.
But the public weren't aware. So is that the reason why you didn't advertise? What
The
is
reason we didn't advertise is we were in the pandemic and nothing was
No,
advertised.
no. It was.
It's not rubbish. We didn't
That's
advertise.
That's incorrect.
We put timetables on the website. We did not put any new timetables out across anywhere in the district until about
There has
April
never
this year.
been a timetable
There has been a timetable on the website,
on the bus.
on the website
on-
as well.
I didn't even find a website.
On the council website where the bus timetable was, there
I'll
was a
ask Paul
timetable.
Gardner if there is. Nobody could find it.
There was, not it figuratively, it was.
Could you
Sorry,
could you
can I-
prove that,
can I
please?
can I just say to that?
No,
It must be clear to you guys who run bus services that people, not all the people along the route are going to be able to access the internet. Many older people do not access the internet. So it must also be very obvious to you that the bus service itself, or if it's not a service, it's a whatever you've just called it. Basically, it really, those people that want to go along to the bus, they want to go up to the bus stop and they want to see it advertised as to what time it's going to go because they want to know how long they're going to stand out in the rain for it.
I completely agree, but it's
So-
entirely futile at this
so,
point because
Can
there's
I
no
say
future
that
for it.
Not advertising properly this service has been negligent to the people.
I can't, sorry, I won't accept that. It's not negligent in a scenario where we don't put any roadside information out. It was common practice throughout the pandemic to put everything online. It was our only option in a pandemic.
Can I say, at some time during the course of the pandemic, somebody from North Somerset Council went around and put notices on how to behave and how to manage during the pandemic, but nobody. Okay.
And also worth saying,
Well done. Well done.
and also worth saying that the rest of them were done by us with permission. So actually, I'm not going to put a timetable up for a bus service that isn't run by us. But
So basically, I still think that actually the North Somerset Council is in charge of this. Have had it very bad.
I think you've,
Sorry, may I
just a
add
small one,
thing?
please, because we
Yes.
don't want the whole evening
No.
to be about
So
one bus.
2 Thursdays ago, this sign appeared on the 56 bus, just to make us all feel better, to say that Western Community Transport were stopping this bus
but luckily it was going to be taken over by Nailsea and District Community Transport.
And I've
Yeah, so
already
there was
stated that that was totally untrue.
So how does it, you can't just say it's totally untrue.
Well, I
Somebody-
can, because I just
No,
did.
But somebody must have made it.
No-
Who has said?
Nobody approached North Southern,
Okay,
Nelsey District
So why
Council
would
to
it
ask.
appear on a poster?
I don't know.
Why
I
would
didn't-
somebody make?
I will give you an honest and frank answer, if I may.
Please do.
There was we worked with Western District to put a notice on the bus. What we hadn't noticed is that it incorrectly implied there was a replacement service to be provided. It should have directed people to use community transport facilities that we do partly fund in a smallish way.
That's Dial a Ride where you phone up.
It's not just Dial a Ride, no,
Right.
they also have scheduled services a few times a week that run into that area.
So are you saying we'll be able to get that?
Absolutely, but you do need to pay a small membership fee towards that. And there is a
Are you
fee for
still saying
use.
this is run by Nailsea and District Community
It's
Transport?
run by Nailsea and District,
No,
not
they're
not
not.
Western and
No,
District.
no, they're not doing it.
They're
I'm a
not.
member of it and I've already spoken to them. They don't know anything about it.
No, I'm sorry, I must
No.
correct the record here. They provide services to the area. They're contracted
Yes,
by
you're
the
not gonna
council.
learn to nip up the road and get on a bus somewhere. You either go on a scheduled trip on a Friday shopping, you go to Sidmouth like I did today, or you do Dial a Ride for 3
Yeah.
weeks' time. Can I go to the doctor?
Yeah, so as I
That's a bus.
as I stated, there are some scheduled services.
They're not scheduled.
They're not scheduled services.
There are set days, they do set routes in set areas.
Not for people to stand on the side of the road and wave them down.
No, you have to be a member and,
Oh, I'm a member. So are you saying then that every Thursday I'll be able to go to Clevedon to the market from where I live by the ship pub on this supposed scheduled bus? Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying is,
Run scheduled buses.
no,
End of
What I'm
discussion.
saying,
They
do
don't
do it.
run scheduled buses.
So
Yes.
how
I
is
can show you the
Carl then
trustees
saying
team.
that-
yes, I know this. What I'm saying is we pay Nailsea and District to run shopper services. Then you might not be able to go where you wish to go at any
But you've
time.
given it as an alternative for
Yes,
the 56, but it isn't. It's a completely different thing.
it's not a complete, it's a shopper service.
No, it's not.
It goes to Sainsbury's and Waitrose. On a Friday, they come pick me up at 9 o'clock. If I want to go to Cleveland, I can't say to them, oh, I can't go on the 56, so can you pop me down to Cleveland?
No,
It's not the same thing.
no, it's not. We know that.
So why?
Because you're conflating two different things. You're asking me, can I go on a service to shopping? Yes, you can. Can you go where you want? You can't. No.
Right.
Okay, I think we've finished the discussion now on 56, I hope. Can we move on to something else, please? Thank you.
Can I bring us back to what the gentleman over there prompted in my head? He was saying about the students going to Weston-super-Mare. Well, I used to drive to my business along the past the university, and the U1s, U2, U3, the metro buses hang around for half a dozen students, get on their double-decker buses in Bristol. You've got the metro swanning around with 2 people on, the park and ride. Why is it when we are the second largest town in North Somerset, 25,000 people are getting ignored above people who can walk 100 yards to the next stop? Some people are so old and infirm. I've got dodgy ankles. They can't make the distance to Sainsbury's. You know, they can't. You're letting your community down by not providing for this rather large area of old people and younger people that need to get to work. We want them to work. How do they get there? Uni, how do they get there? Why can't you divert some of the money that is being centered on Bristol all the time? They've got the blaming scooters nowadays. They don't need the bus. You know, but our kids need to get to Western, and it's a long way. You know, they need to get to the jobs. They're crying out for staff everywhere because they can't get there. They're too young to drive. You just said yourself, they have to be 28 to pass their test now. They can't afford a car. We're supposed to be looking after our environment, not driving our cars. And now We've got to walk everywhere. Use your resources properly. Fund your communities. I've spoken to you about this before a few years ago. I don't remember names, but I do remember faces. Stop this stupidity. The shopping place that everybody wants to go is up the road. It's not in Bristol Centre. You killed it. It's dead. There's nothing there. 4 banks and a few building societies.
Let me,
And
if I could come back on it.
Let me just finish it off. Weston-super-Mare is not an attractive place to go shopping. You can go up in a small area and have a nice day out. And that's all I want to say. Use your resources better. Stop funding the cities. Look after your other people.
If I kick off, but there might be some elements that the council want to add. I think it's not a true comparison to compare the U1 in Bristol and the X5. The U1 in Bristol is actually funded directly by the University of Bristol. That is what we call a gross cost contract. So they actually provide it and they spec exactly what they want, same as the airport flyer, for example. And we basically do what they ask us to do. The other services in Bristol, we provide on a commercial basis in exactly the same way as we currently do with the X5. They turn over a profit and the X5 does not. And unfortunately, as a business, we have no choice but to put our resources where they make money, because that is what we are. I didn't interrupt you. I didn't interrupt you. I'm not legally, if you would please sit down, I can answer your question. We are not legally permitted in the bus industry as the large operator under Competition Commission rules. We are not permitted to have large loss leaders, certainly not ones in excess of £250,000 a year loss. That is not good business. I don't deny that there is a social need to go to these places. I completely agree. I also agree that Cribbs Causeway is more attractive a shopping venue than Broadmead. I can see that. But that is where we have to work with our transport authorities who are there to provide you with the bus services. Now, it is not me blaming the people over there because they need the funding to do so. All of this boils down to funding and a gap between October and April, where I do believe the X5 does have a future. That is why we are willing to operate it under contract, where there are services where we don't believe that the services have a future, including, I should note, one that is less than 2 miles out of the city centre in Bristol, which is a service 72A, which we mentioned that under funding, we would still not be interested in operating. That may be replaced by WECA, may not be. But it's to give you an example that it feels very personal to Portishead, and I understand why it does, but it isn't. We are removing or proposing at this stage to remove something like 10 or 11 different bus services spread from Bristol to South Gloucestershire to North Somerset and to Baines. It feels more personal than it is, but as a business, we have to put our resource where there is a good business to make. Otherwise, we need to work closely with our transport authorities to get some funding to build patronage up and make a service work, which I believe we can do under funding with the X5, but we ran the service to Cribbs Causeway for 30 years and we never, ever made it pay for itself. I don't even need the X5 to make money. I just need it not to lose hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. So under funding, and I do believe there's a bright future, and I hope North Somerset would agree, but right now we have to get there. And I think that's the message. I make no apology for being very direct on that, because that is the point that we have to make.
Steve, I know you want to say some words, but can you actually perhaps discuss what it would take for you to have money to make an X5? Because it sounds as though the university pay for the one in Bristol. Could Weston College not pay through yourselves?
Can people hear me if I don't stand up? Right, I'll just speak really closely to the microphone. I know Caritas wants to come in as well. I just wanted to, I'll answer that, Bob. I'll just make some general points as well, really, just to pull back from some of the detail. Because I think one of the key issues here is this, what is effectively, and Chris has spoken about it a lot this evening, about this unfortunate gap between when the government bus recovery support grant runs out at the beginning of October and the point where we as a council begin to get some of the money that we've been, worked really hard actually to be allocated, at least indicatively, from the Department for Transport, which will begin to kick in later in the year, but really people begin to notice a difference in 2023. So we're in a sort of really messy transitional sort of 6 to 9 month period. I think we will, the future, I mean, there is obviously the issue with the driver shortage, which isn't going to go away actually very quickly. And that, everyone in the room has to acknowledge that is a real issue, the driver shortage. But I think we will get to a place, the aspirations to get to a place, let's say a year from now, where we have some really solid, reliable, well-run, stable services along key routes in North Somerset, the key routes that people can rely on. And we're looking at all sorts of other solutions to get people to those key routes. Because of the driver shortage, there's absolutely no point in using up a driver, so to speak, to have a bus with a couple of people on it when you could be using that driver more productively. That's a fact. I wish we weren't in that place, frankly. Some of us in the room might want buses to be, public transport to be nationalized, but that's not going to happen, is it? So we have to look at the reality. But I understand it's really confusing for people, and it's more confusing because through the pandemic, bus stops are virtually, that where bus stops are, but in terms of what services are going to turn on and when, you've no idea. So you have to check online. But for those who don't have the internet, that's an issue, of course. So yeah, I mean, we are in a position where Carl has mentioned that we're able to continue an X5 service, not exactly from October, not exactly as it is at the moment. Remember, first, given notice that they want to withdraw 3 services. It's not just the X5, it's the X2, which is actually in my ward, which I think we're not going to be able to save. Okay, but I'm grown up enough to understand that we have got alternatives to Gatton. We've got a 54 service, which I campaigned for, which started in April last year, which we want to improve, and we have a train station, something we're working really hard, as I hope is recognised, that you will get some time in Portishead. I didn't hear any of those comments, but anyway, it's a fact. We're working really hard to bring back to reconnect Portishead with Bristol by rail. So we're all on the same side. We're totally with you. The fact is, we have got a massive budget gap next year as well. Okay, it's in excess of £10 million of savings to find. Okay, 85% of the things that North Somerset Council has to do, we have to do. It's statutory services which have to provide. So we have to find, we call them efficiencies. We have to find cuts. We have to find cuts for the remaining 15% of the money that we could raise through council tax and business rates. It ain't going to be pretty next year, believe me. So we are doing all we can to look, really in a really focused way on what are the bus services that we can retain, and others that we have to think of, whether alternatives where you have to say, well, yeah, there's a train station, or there is a connection that someone can make to a fast service. But I think we've had enough time to talk about Walton Bay and 56 this evening. We can talk about that.
I'm sorry, that is enough. Bob, do you want to say some words? Some other comments, please.
Good evening, everyone. I've listened quite a bit today. The first thing I need to bring out is information. Everyone in this room has asked for information. I brought up at the last meeting how to provide that information. I even offered to do that work for the information. You have boards everywhere. In fact, we have a town full of boards that's got nothing on it apart from old COVID signs. Or McDonald's, which is all the way through the high street. And that's where your information needs to go. It's very simple. I did it for the summer show. It cost me £14 for a poster the same size as those lovely McDonald's pictures. So why can't you do that? Or would you like me to help you to do that? As for the 56, my offer is there. If you need a driver, I'll drive it myself. A few other things. Thank you. A few other things. How come since the 8th of August, First Bus is now advertising on primetime TV? That's a bit weird, isn't it? Don't you think?
Can I just ask why it would be weird for us to advertise?
Because you're
to try-
telling
Let me-
us you've got
let me
no
finish.
money and you're, how much did that advertisement cost?
So we were fortunate we spent some of the central money from the group on that. We got capital expenditure on it, but actually it is not abnormal for a business to advertise. The best way for us to work as a business is to bring more passengers onto the bus, which we have done on certain corridors. But we don't have the customers.
Do you know when the last time you advertised?
If you'd let me finish, the X4, for an example, is actually now in a better financial state than I have ever known it to be. And actually, as a result, that is why we've retimed it. There are lots of services where that's the case, but some, like the X5, where that has not been as full. And that is why we advertise. Any business would be completely foolish to go through a period that we've gone through and not try to advertise to get customers back onto the bus. That advertising campaign has paid for itself in revenue that it has brought back in, as any business would do.
Okay. Next one. It won't be long, so I assure you, Bob. The train. 165 million is estimated now to be costing. Okay, we'll go 10 years ahead in time. Back to the future, yeah. 10 years time, how much is diesel going to cost in 10 years time? Because you'll be running your buses on diesel and your train on diesel. Or are you actually going to buy some battery electric buses?
Yes, so we are, one of the reasons we need to make money, and one of the reasons that the group, so we're part of a big group, and I can't comment on any of the group finances because I'm the operations director for one little bit of it, so it would be completely inappropriate for me to do so. However, we are a large group, and one of the things that we are looking to do is to increase our presence in the electric market. You'll know that we've got 77 gas buses in Bristol, which are low emission, but they're not emission free.
Exactly.
We've got lots of electric buses in other parts of the country, and we've been told there's new electric bus funding schemes called Zebra. I can't exactly remember what it calls, zero emission bus.
Zebra
something.
2.
Thank you. That we will be working to. The big cost, of course, is getting the infrastructure in the first place. Actually, once we've got it, it does actually pay for itself. So we are looking to start that trial soon. I don't know where and I don't know when. So the buses that you have now, which were bought at an expense of around £8 or £9 million, they were pre-ordered actually prior to COVID, but they were delivered in 2022, which you'll see on your routes today, are the last diesel buses that we will order into the west of England.
Yeah, because I'm a bit, obviously, what was it, 17 that you bought for the Badger line?
22.
22 double-decker buses at £500,000 a piece.
320,000
Okay, all
each.
right,
So
okay.
they were bought
You obviously got a
pre-COVID.
discount.
We were bought pre-COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
But then the manufacturer.
I mean,
today-
it's funny. I don't know if anyone knows Turkey and the Dolmushes. Most of them are now electric, and they're actually run by people themselves, so they actually earn their own money over it. But there's also, it's not just electric as well. You also got to remember the environment. What we already had twice this last couple of weeks, heat. In 10 years' time, or by the end of the decade, the heat will exceed 40 degrees. And another thing, so you need to think about how those buses are going to cope with that as well.
Yeah, and electric buses present a real benefit around that kind of thing, because actually, for example, air conditioning is a lot easier on electric fleets, believe it or not, than it is on diesel fleet. We know that we have a pledge by 2030, we would have removed 90% of our diesel buses from fleet. By 2035, would have removed them all.
I'll keep you to that.
That is the group's pledge, so you can, that's
Can I-
right across first. The train wise, whilst yes, we are the same company as GWR, I cannot comment at all on the train simply because I don't know.
I mean, the final thing, what worries me with the train is what's worrying me with the bus right now. Are we in a few years' time after the train, if it turns up, spends its first year on that line, are we going to end up in another meeting identical to this as North Somerset starts subsidising the train? Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Caritas Charles and I'm the councillor for Portishead East. And I just want to bring it back to what Bob Bull said at the start, that we need to look at solutions. I think it's been really good that we've been able to express our anger tonight. But I also think I personally, and I don't know about you, want to take some things that we can do after this meeting. And I have to say that great news on the X5 as it is, with those provisions, it's not enough. And let's not thank First for this, because you're paying for it. Thank you, because you're paying for it. The money that First are going to get is your money, is our money. And they wouldn't have done it unless the money was coughed up. So don't thank First. They're not to be thanked for this at all. And also, we're being angry at the wrong people. Steve here and Carl have absolutely no power whatsoever. They have none, very, very little. There are places where local authorities have power, like London, like Manchester, where they can influence these bus companies. These bus companies control the show. There are three of them. Three of them control over 75% of public transport in this country. They have a monopoly. How do you change this? How do we express our anger at these community services being cut? It is up to us to write to our MPs and get them to give the authority. Well, who would you rather have? A private bus company that doesn't really have to listen to you at all. It's only really interested in its shareholders. Or Steve, if you don't like what he's doing, you can vote him out next year. That's what you can do. So start, I think one of the suggestions we can have from this meeting is to start writing to our MPs saying that we want local control of our public transport. So it serves the interests of our local community. Because actually at the moment, there's no point to local authority involvement. You might as well just hand the money straight over to First, because they have all the power and all the control, and they can decide what buses are run and what buses aren't. And Carl's going to disagree with me.
I'm not going to entirely disagree.
But that is the point. What we need to do is to write to people like Liam Fox, write to the Transport Minister and say that we've had enough and that transport is an essential community service and it should be run by and for the community.
So I'd like to make a follow-on point for that. So local councils outside of London are banned from what is being mildly referred to as a franchise, where councils would have jurisdiction over what runs where. And that is still done in partnership and delivered by private companies. So it's not massively different in some respects. However, we are not allowed to franchise at the moment. We have to go into what we call an enhanced partnership. And that is exactly what we're about to do in October. then we will have more say over how much our road space is used and what frequencies. But to be honest, you still got to work with the private providers to do that sensibly. And yeah, I mean, ultimately beyond that, I'm not here to comment on politics. It can be changed, and there is a softening in tone in government to do so. But the first step will have to be an enhanced partnership. If that fails to deliver, then plausibly we could end up like Manchester with WECA, where there's a franchise.
Sorry, can I just say that our bus, our 56 bus, is not being serviced by First Bus. Our bus is being funded at the moment by North Somerset Council. They are opting to take away the service that North Somerset Council are so say providing. They are taking that funding away. They are doing just the same thing based on fact, based, if we argue it with them, probably on numbers. Our group has actually written to Liam Fox, and I think most of you have got a copy of the response that he's obviously sent to the council. He is disappointed that North Somerset is taking this action to remove the 56. The 56 to some degree could therefore be amalgamated with the X5 to improve and support the services for us all. That way, more customers on the buses. That way, less people in the cars. That's what the government are wanting us to do. That's what North Somerset Council say they want us to do. And yet they're taking away this service that is run by the local authority. It's green speak. It's a waste of their time to speak like that and say they are going to provide a service and then take it away on the basic understanding that not enough people are so using it. Well, we can answer that one as well, because we've gathered evidences to suggest that more people are using it. They will know. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, we need it to be locally serviced with local buses run by the local authority, but it must be a good, consistent, reliable service that takes into account all communities, all ratepayers. As the councillor rightly said, we are paying for these services, whether we're paying it through North Somerset Council or to First Bus, we are paying through those services. So with one of us being, or us being the greatest 7 nations on earth financially, why are we not providing proper services to the people that contribute to that and make us one of the G7 nations? Sorry, guys, I've finished.
There's a question online about the funds and the 150 million that was talked about, which I think Steve's going to answer.
Yeah, again, hopefully people can hear me. I can't remember who it was who asked the question. Was it Becky or? So Becky was asking about, and the figure she quoted was 150 million that we received apparently in March 2022, and what have we done with it basically? Funny enough, that I did have a bit of a run-in yesterday with John Penrose MP, who pretty much said the same thing. And it's a bit rich, frankly, because, well, for a start, it's not 150 million, it's 105. Still a heck of a lot of money. We don't have any of that yet. So we've received, it's split into 2 pots. There's a pot for capital funding, which is 48 million, which we hopefully will see in the or an amount near that anyway, hopefully later in the year. And that's for capital. So that basically is, we'll fund lots of bus lane privatization work, new bus shelters, that kind of thing, not bus service. No, not at all. No. That benefits nor, that's a bid that people like Carl worked really hard to put together. And we were, can you let, just, no, first benefit to a certain extent in that it makes their buses, we benefit from efficient bus services. Whoever runs the services, if they're efficient and reliable, we benefit from that, don't we? And the other amount, which is 50 something million, was a joint bid by North Somerset Council and the West of England Combined Authority for revenue, and that is money you can effectively spend on bus services and whatnot. We will get a proportion of that. We're not absolutely 100% sure how much, but in excess of probably 10 million. And this speaks to the earlier point. We haven't received that money yet. Okay, the government's bus support grant to the commercial bus operators runs, basically ends at the beginning of October. But we as a council, other authorities who will receive BSIP funding, we won't actually get that money in the bank until I'm sure it'll come in not in one go anyway, until after that point. So we've asked the government. I wrote back to John Penrose, we're basically saying we're talking here about some flexibility to help bridge this awkward gap between the bus support grants the bus operators running out at the beginning of October and when we begin to get money later in the year. Now, there's lots of work going on behind the scenes, and I would hope there would be still lots of time for community input into this to shape what a reliable, stable bus service will look like in a year's time, 2 years' time in North Somerset. Now, there'll be lots of asks, and we're still not going to be able to deliver everything. And I go back to my earlier point about ensuring that the main routes are well serviced, and we're looking at creative solutions for getting people to those main routes, and demand responsive transport is part of that. So, we haven't got the money yet, Becky. So there was no money, no money to spend. So if you're picking that up from the kind of thing that John Penrose has said, it's incredibly disappointing. And certainly yesterday I was very angry about it and wrote to him and said so.
It was good news, partially good news about the X5, but until North Somerset's aspirations to get it continued as it was before up to Cribbs Causeway, would First Bus consider negotiating with the management at Cribbs Causeway of doing something similar that they've got with the airport, the university, and running a temporary, a separate service completely to what's going to be operated for the time being, say from Cleveland and Portishead alone, up to Cribbs Causeway, say 2 times in the morning up and 2 times back in the afternoon, a subsidised service with the management of Cribbs Causeway, so that because we don't really need to go to Weston to shop, and I know North Somerset would like us to, but we'll still be able to on the X5 if we want to. Thank you.
I think that there's 2 points back to that. Firstly, if Cribbs Causeway wanted to pay towards it, that's I could go and ask them that, and we would be happy to do so if I had any drivers to drive it. So I'm not sure how using my car to help drive buses would be helpful, but yes, I'm not sure you're making the point you think you are. But if you'd let me finish. Yes. Right. But the issues of Cribbs Causeway, which is what the question was relating to, was around whether we would be happy to ask Cribbs Causeway to fund it. The answer is, of course, we would be happy to, but at the present moment, I don't have the driver resource to be able to run a bus service to Cribbs Causeway, even if the funding were available for October. I aim to, and it is a big aim, because as I said, the situation is not good in that area, to be able to start reintroducing and expanding our service provision in the new year. So in broad terms, any funding that we could get to run a bus from here to Portishead, we would of course consider doing, as long as we can resource it reliably. And that's the bit that right now we can't do, and I can't commit to do at the moment. That's not to say no forever. I would be happy for any avenue of funding, and it's not a bad idea to approach Cribbs Causeway.
There is a point about Cribbs Causeway that many don't realise. The holding company went bankrupt during the pandemic, i.e. the MAL went bankrupt because no one was travelling. Funny old thing in the pandemic. And prior to the pandemic, the patronage numbers out of this town in Cleveland were too low to sustain a 4-bus operation to keep the X5. This is what we keep telling people. Whatever goes in place won't be what it used to be, but there is a viable, we think, demand to do something. And that's exactly what we're looking to do with BSIP money. It's one of our top priorities. We got that message 12 months ago plus from the residents here, and it remains a priority of the council to put something in place. But unfortunately, the driver scenario is not likely to deliver that in the very short term. But we will make every effort to do that, and we will keep you updated as we go along with that. No, I don't believe he has the relevant license.
Caritas, do you want to say something else? You could answer that.
You know, it's a really good question. So for those of you that can't read the board, there's a question about how do we attract more drivers in? If I had the answer to that question, well, I'd be a richer man than I am. But there's lots of different things we need to do to attract people into our business, and we're working through lots of different channels. The reality is, at the moment, we're just not getting the people to apply to work for us. And until that changes, we won't have any ability to increase our service. We are trying everything we can, but I could have a whole meeting talking about how to attract drivers. I think for now, if anybody's got any ideas how we can attract drivers, feed them in.
Well, your head of people at First Group lives in Bladden, so he's just lost his local bus. Sorry, your head of people in First Group lives in Bladden, so he's just lost his local bus. So hopefully that'll motivate him. But
I don't have the drivers for the buses that we're cancelling. So what we call, so that the problem is but they're not. So the issue is at the moment, we are not running the service that we are scheduled to run because I don't have enough drivers. And that is why there's lots and lots of stories, and lots of people in this room have probably experienced it, where you turn up to a bus stop and a bus simply doesn't arrive. What we are looking to do in October is simply correct that situation to get us to a place. We still need to recruit between now and then. I've still made an assumption of how many staff we can get between now and then, and I hope that we can get them. But actually, it is to stop us losing and not running a reliable service on our network. And so I'm not reutilizing the drivers. I simply don't have them at the moment to be able to do anything with. So we lose, on average, about 6% of our journeys don't run because we haven't got any staff. We cannot sustain that. That is an unsustainable level of unreliability. And we've got to bring that back to where we would expect it to be, which is more than 90% of our services to run as we advertise. They should be around 95%, and we're way off that.
Just add a point that if First don't take that action, the traffic commissioner will probably do it for them eventually. So it's not really a choice they have to make. They have to cut routes to the level of drivers' resource that's reliable. So that it's not as if they're just happily slashing routes. They have to do this.
John Cato.
Thanks. Hi, I'm John Cato. I'm District Councillor for Portishead West, representing you in North Somerset District Council. Hearing all the conversations that are going on, I hear a whole load of anger, and it's good. I am sorry about that, sir. Can you hear me now? Thank you. What I'm hearing is a lot of anger and upset, which I am too. I have residents in my ward as well as every other ward in this town having problems with getting through to Weston, getting through to Cribs and so on. I hear a good meaning, though sometimes defensive, sometimes positive comment from both First Bus and also from our representatives here from the District Council. And what I'm hearing also is seeing stuff from MPs like John Penrose talking about how North Somerset District Council is not actually trying to step up, and various other comments like that. One of the things I do observe is I can't see any of our MPs here, but I can see First Bus and I can see North Somerset District Council members, as well as other councillors.
Liam Fox was invited.
Thank you. So what I'm saying really is you've all heard lots and lots of argument, discussion, points of view, all right? But really it's central government that needs to be hassled, really, through your MPs to say what you think is important and how you think some kind of solution might be reached. Not only for here, not only for North Somerset. This is a national problem. Okay, I mean, it's occurring everywhere you go, and some councils have managed to find a solution, a way round the legislation or whatever. But you need to think about it and try and do your own research and then write to your MPs and tell them what you think and what you want them to do in central government to make some changes so that we can get public transport that is for the public, in the best interests of the public. Not so that it's, you know, the public providing money just to companies like First Bus or any others. What we've got to do is provide something which is good for the public and our residents. So we can get to hospitals, we can get to the health centre, we can get to the shops or whatever it is. That's my ask of your right to your MPs.
Thank you. Caritas?
Just one ask to put North Somerset Council on the post, as it were, is that I'm sorry first, but your community consultation is appalling and has been completely appalling. We have had numerous meetings and you have not kept the public informed on a constant basis of the developments that you have. You have not even let councillors know in time. You've let people like Steve know. Shall I tell you about the latest round of cuts? How much advance notice I had from you guys? 11 minutes. I had 11 minutes advance notice of when this was going to happen. People like Steve had slightly more, but not much. Can I have an assurance from Steve as leader of the council? Because I believe there will be new working agreements with companies like First in the future, when particularly the new government money comes through. Can I have a guarantee from Steve tonight that we will not have conversations with First unless they agree to a firm community consultation agreement with North Somerset Council, so that the public, like the public here tonight, are kept informed of these changes and are kept abreast of these changes, and so that they are knowing and that councillors are knowing of what is going on with our bus services. Can I also say as well about the passenger numbers? Can I also say one of the things about bus driver numbers, I was flicking through some of the pay disputes actually and looking through things like Unite Union, and a lot of it was around pay, and you've argued you paying a lot more. If it's essential, you need to pay more, maybe give some of that 30 million you got in profit last year towards that to actually encourage driving. But have you also looked at speculate to accumulate? with regards to services, better advertising. Most of the people I talk to in my ward don't have a clue how they're actually gonna, those services are run, when they're run, how the connectivity works. Can we have a commitment to better advertising? Better advertising of the connectivity of how that works. And also as well, with regards to the X5 service, I'm sorry, I'm pessimistic on the rules as it is, because Steve and Carl's hands are tied because the government have told them, again, first in total control, that they will not provide money to services that are deemed not profitable. So if first were to say there was potential for the X5 and there was potential to make it profitable, funds could be released, but they won't. So we're in a catch-22 situation here. We can't have the money to invest in the X5 because first, say it's not profitable, so the government will not release any of that money to go on the X5. So write to your MPs, just as I said earlier, just as John said then, because that's the only way it's going to change.
Just clarify a point on that. We actually have managed to secure, ironically, money from government for the X5. It is slightly temporary, but one would assume more permanent as long as people keep using the service. And I will say I do have a very impassioned plea. Please keep using the X5 and please let us know if there's anything wrong with that amended service, because I would like to think we could correct it before April when it's due review. So I'm happy to talk to you after the meeting.
And just on the plea to us, yes, is my answer. We will do whatever we need to do to work with the community to make the X5 work. And if that means we need to think differently about how we communicate it, whether we do local door drops, stuff like that, we're very, very happy to do that because it is in our interest too for it to work. So yes is the answer. As far as consultation goes, I would like to point out that we are here and actually we are in a consultation phase, which has resulted in the X5 being retained temporarily, I accept. And I know that we've got room for improvement on it. I don't have to be. Is pre-consultation. Just for the people on Zoom. No, just for the people on Zoom, that the question was around us doing pre-consultation. I'd also like to point out that we've come under no obligation tonight. We've come under the last 3 meetings as well, under no obligation. I accept that we could do more, and I do. And a new environment with an enhanced partnership allows us not to have to worry about competition, for example, in as much as we do. Well, we do, because let's remember as well that the figures for the X5, just a little correction as well, the pre-COVID figures actually don't come from us. They come from Stagecoach, who ran the X5 prior to us. Just as a little point, they had the same issue we do. I'm not throwing them under the bus, but it's a broader, if you pardon the pun, but it's a broader issue. But yes, we will commit to further consultation. And if we wanted to have a separate discussion about how we might do that, I'd be very happy to meet you anytime to do so.
Can I just say that over the last couple of years, I have sent numerous letters, emails, I should say, to Liam Fox, and every one of those was passed to Baroness Beer at the Department of Transport. I've had replies back from her via him again, and every one of those from her have been negative, and his have always been positive to her. So I'm not a great fan of Liam Fox, but I will defend him in this case because he has passed all my letters on, and that's what happens is from the department itself, the negativity there as regards all that I've asked for, all that I've suggested. So, you know, to be fair to Liam Fox, I had to say that.
Steve.
Thank you. And he has been very helpful with Metro West as well, I have to say. Very much working as a team on that one. And yeah, on Cribs, Heather, I hope you know you've met my colleague Steve Hogg, haven't you? Steve came to see you, and we at least yeah. So the communication remains open on that one. Yeah, I just wanted to just very briefly respond to Caritas because he spoke directly to me about a point about consultation. I hear that, Caritas. I think you know, part of the enhanced partnership, I believe I'm right in saying that a work stream ongoing is around consultation, communication, involving things like bus user groups, sort of embedding that kind of culture within enhanced partnership is something that I'm absolutely see as central to going forward on this. And I think that came through clearly from other ward councillors as well when we brought the last bus service improvement plan document to executive and then full council. I think it's something that continually comes up from your good self and from other councillors cross party. So yeah, absolutely. In terms of giving absolutely for guarantee, I guarantee that I will be mindful of what every step of the way. It's really important to me. It's really difficult sometimes, to be honest, in terms of communication, information flow, because you want to say something when there's something to say, don't you? You don't want to sort of because you don't want to share something that's a bit half-baked all the time, and then you're only going to get stick on Facebook and just sow more confusion. So we don't get it right probably half the time, frankly. But we will absolutely provide information when there is something to say in a way that it can't be misconstrued. It's it's something that it's never going to get perfection on that one, far from it, but absolutely mindful of all of that. Absolutely.
Okay, unless somebody's got something new to raise. Got something new to raise?
Right, basically, I would like to ask you, have you got any plans to alter the X4 route? Because your drivers believe it will not be going up West Hill in future.
I don't know if that's their belief or desire, but
I know what you're saying.
And I can tell you, as driving the X4, West Hill is not my favourite route to drive. So I have an awful lot of sympathy for it. But however, we are not planning to change the X4 route, and we are going to continue to serve it as it is today.
One thing I will say, it will stop going up there when they do the road. Steve, do you know when it's going to be?
Oh,
I
come
thought
on.
it was this autumn.
You must be joking. That is going to... I've been waiting for that road to be done
Yeah.
ever since I moved up there.
But it is
That was
scheduled.
6 years
I
ago.
believe it's. Do you know?
I was going to say,
I have been lobbying to get West Hill sorted, and I have had assurances that it's being paid for the course of 2 years, but it will be done, started hopefully this autumn.
Yeah.
Cross fingers.
Information is this
With all
autumn.
due respect, my dear, there is a bus stop opposite Priory Road, which we have been trying to get a yellow box put there to stop the clowns from further up the road parking where the bus tries to stop. And the council hasn't put it there ever since they put a raised curb. It's a waste of time asking.
No, can I take that away tonight? Because that definitely can be dealt with.
Yeah, that was raised to us some time ago. So we went up with North Somerset Council officers some time ago, and actually a series of improvements were made to the yellow lines to allow us to get past what was once upon a time the Royal Oak. But that road is continually challenging. But that bus stop you're talking about, we would support any work that can be done there.
Can
So
you
we'll
just
have a
check I've
chat.
got the
Yeah.
If they're going to resurface it, obviously it will be repainted afterwards.
But they've never painted it in the first place.
No, but we're looking about the future, and they are going to resurface it this October.
Yes, I'm just going to ask the gentleman who's talking. You're talking about bus stops. You're talking about bus stops. If you're making Sainsbury's our major bus stop turntable, can we have a covered space to sit under when it's really, really blowy and in the right place, because there's a lot of old people who like to sit down. in
That's
the
a good
Sainsbury's
question.
end.
I think my colleague Carl will be able to answer it, but we've been petitioning the same thing.
Ideally, yes, we will have money to do it. So as long as Sainsbury's like us and will let us, as it's their land, then yes, it does drive a lot of business into their store. So I'm sure they'll be happy to work with us, I hope, on that. Yes, so we have the money to do it in theory, and that will be one. And yeah, it would be a big bay, yes. Yeah, you could probably have quite a few there if you wish.
I just wanted to ask a question now we're talking about the X4. Is there any plan to get the X4 to change back to its old route of going down the high street?
There are no plans for that at the present moment.
Okay, because I don't know if you.
Yeah, so the X4, I mean, I've been involved in the buses reported since it was a 358 and a 359. And since we've gone through various iterations of the bus service in Portishead, and of course, we always come back to the same problem that you've got a town of 2 halves that you can't serve with one bus easily. I don't accept that you can serve it a bit. All of these things are up for review, but the current X4 is the first time we've actually managed to get it to be financially sustainable in the time that I have actually been working for it.
X3, so whereas it was divided, passengers are all going on the same one, whereas.
So the X4, I mean, primarily we've made a benefit through saving time for not going through the marina. That has helped, and obviously the marina was terribly unreliable in terms of being able to get through. The reality is that from a passenger perspective, there are twice the number of customers for us to pick up on that side than there were when we ran it both sides before. But none of this is to say that this is forever. And I believe, and my colleague Carl will virtually kick me in the shins if I'm wrong, that is part of the discussion we're having around the future of services in Portishead, about how we better serve both halves, which is very much in our interest as much as it is in yours, but it needs a broader review. And I don't personally believe that just simply changing the X4 will do it, because actually that means the frequency the other end of Portishead won't be sufficient. So I think there has to be a better solution, and we need to look at it in the broader context. But I agree with you, and I do see the point.
I don't know if you know also that what you could do is get off of the X4 at Coombe Road and cross over to Iceland, and then get either the X5 or the Stagecoach bus down. But I don't know if you know that they don't connect by about 3 minutes. So
I'm aware of the issue with ours, and we're going to correct
So I got off, well, as the X4 sailed down to Coombe Road, so the connecting bus to go down the high street sailed past. And that was not just.
No, I'm really sorry about
happens
that.
every time. So I was just going to say, I wasn't sure if you were aware that on the timetable, they don't actually connect.
Yeah, we are. I mean, not to give everybody a poor little bus scheduling talk, because it's not. I'm not a bus scheduler, and it's not an easy feat. So actually, the X5 at the moment operates actually in what we call into work. So it actually becomes another service when it gets into Bristol, and is timed so that it can do that. In the new world, the X5 will work on its own, which means that I can move the X5 to accommodate the X4. In the future, we are looking to make the X4 more reliable by operating it out of our Bristol depot, out of the bus station. However, at the moment, I have more drivers in the Weston-super-Mare depot than in the other one. So the current situation, we're going to remove it from the X1, but the current situation will be retained just for a little longer until I can more evenly recruit drivers for them. But I do appreciate that it's frustrating when your X4 is held up by a problem in Clevedon or Weston, for example. So that's why that is. But the X5 being on its own, M5 issues aside, we should be able to balance the timetable out better. And I am aware of the issue.
Okay, we have 5 minutes. Just to say, I would like to thank people that have come and stood up or not sat down or tried to speak to you on the mics. Apologise if the sound's not been good, but I would like to thank them for coming, because I want them to come again. I'd like to thank you all to come and again and keep on this pressure. And I would definitely emphasise writing to your MP, even if he pushes it on and it gets pushed back. It's the money is in Central, the money isn't in Weston, and it certainly isn't in Portishead. The money's central, and that's what we need to get down here. So I'd like to thank you all for coming. I guess it's a timing issue. If we don't set it fairly early. We get complained at that we haven't set it early enough. When do you think the next time call makes sense?
I reckon early-ish November.
November, okay.
The changes will have happened by
We'll
then
have
on the
some idea
services.
what we could do with them.
We might have the money, hopefully. So it'd be a good time to have a discussion. And perhaps we
Okay.
can then share some of our plans.
So all of you that are here, look out for something around October when we will give you a date that will be mid-early, that sort of time of November. Thank you again for coming. Right, that's what we're here for.